Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Marshall H. Sanders, returning to you for what I hope to be the last video on the white matrix reparations. Excuse me, the voice is a little weak today. Um, should get something to drink, but I think I'm going to try to soldier through on this. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about the most famous reparations there ever was. See, there was a people that were actually in bondage and slavery for 430 years. And when they came out of that slavery, it was by uh, really violent acts. And there was so much fear on those who were enslaving them that when the people were leaving, they literally gave all their wealth up to these people. These people actually took uh, as the record's written, they completely spoiled the people. In other words, during the course of a war, you took the spoils of a war. Well, they took all the spoils of these people, and they came out. Now, to some of you, that's going to seem like a very familiar story. Others may really be wondering, wow, okay, what does that have to do with this? Pardon me. Well, it's very simple. That story is a story of Exodus in the Bible. It is a story how God brought out the Israeli people after 430 years of bondage and slavery to the Egyptians, and how God gave them everything, basically, of the wealth that they had worked for, and all that even the Egyptians had themselves. The point of that story was to make it very plain. Here it is that blacks are actually asking for part, just something of what they labored for 400 plus years. And what does the response? What is the response? You deserve nothing. I could not tell you all the comments and reactions and things that I have received since I've been making this serious and addressing this issue. It would blow the mind of many, and to many of you, you're gonna, yeah, expect it. Now, isn't it strange that a country that can call itself mostly Christian, and when someone says we're not Christian, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Why is it then that we always try to pretend we are Christian? Tell me that. Why is it that we put our hands on the Bible when we swear? From the President of the United States to the lowest person committing an oath. But that's not Christian, of course. You see, Americans have always been looked at in the book of Revelation, where it talks about the sheep, which was always the sacrifice, always the right one, that looked like a sheep but really spoke as a wolf, that performed as a wolf. That's what America is, and that's the reality of America. America is for the most part, demonic wolf that runs around devouring and taking whatever it wants from anyone, and then only sharing the spoils rather with those in its own uh, flock of wolves, if you will, or den of wolves, I should say. Pardon me. I guess I should have drunk something for this throat, but I digress. The point to me starting this way is because America has a very, very violent history. And yet, as violent as American history is, do you know that blacks, in terms of having to initiate any protest, riot, destruction of property, harm to anyone, did you know that blacks are less than 0.0001% of initiators of any violent protest? Did you know that? Did you know it is far more likely for white women to initiate violent protests than blacks anywhere in history of this country? Are you aware of that? And yet, when the white women rioted, destroyed property, stole, they were forgiven and justified in some cases. In some cases, justified. Black men, black women, black children say we just want some of our labor, the fruits of some of our labor. And it's a major problem. Why? Now, see, when I initially thought about this, and I'll get back to the reparations in a moment, but when I really thought about this, I said, well, maybe it's from some wars or conflicts that between African nations and Europeans, but that's not it. We know it as the white majors, but you see, if it was simply the skin color, then it wouldn't explain the 1/8 laws, which forbid a person who looked as white as any white from ever getting married to a white person in many places. It was called the one drop blood rule. They literally hate black people from their blood in their body. That is a hatred that is in their DNA. Now again, I know there's exceptions. Please don't. I've made this whole video and the videos, subsequent videos, and everything I've basically stated that the whole point is to bring people together. But you got to be real. It is in the DNA of many, if not most, whites to resist any progression of black. There is a hatred for the very blood of a people. Think about that. Now, let's get back to this reparations that I hope this is the last video I'm going to speak on. Now, I use the Israelite expression, but let me tell you how ridiculous the resistance to this is. Do you know how many? Do you know that America is the lawsuit capital of the entire world? I mean, the things that we sue for go beyond and way beyond, and yet most people don't find them frivolous or whatever. Especially if the person actually gets the reward, which is interesting. It's like a person takes another one to court and they want reparations or whatever you want to call them, and then guess what? People laugh at them. Then they get it, the finances, and then suddenly the people don't find it so funny anymore. They find it, oh wow, you know what? Maybe the institution deserved it. It's interesting how the American minds think when they see they can get something. And yet they ascribe that same white matrix mindset to blacks, even though we have not shown a history of being frivolous with our lawsuits. Let me give you a couple of lawsuit ideas here. We all know, many of us know about the woman who set the hot coffee from McDonald's between her legs, and the top came off, and she sued McDonald's because she set it between her leg and got burned. I mean, come on, right? Oh, how about the homeowners that injured themselves during a robbery to someone else and sued the homeowners? Okay, how about Winnebago owners winning lawsuits after they left the driver's seat because the vehicle's cruise control was activated. But that makes it sound like it's only with certain people, right? It's like if people want to do things like that, they only want money. What about when companies do it? I mean, I want you to think about this. When companies actually sue other companies, is it frivolous? Okay, let me give you an example of one case, right? Because since blacks are not considered intelligent and always want something, could you? I just want you to think about this. Someone wants a lawsuit for work that was committed. This isn't some, hey, this is an accusation. Most whites basically admit slavery, that blacks were not paid for slavery. I mean, it should be a no-brainer. It should be 100% that we're not even going to address that. That's just 100%. That should be something 100%. But that's only most whites. Of those polled, about 80%. So only about 80% even acknowledge slavery, which is beyond demonic, in my humble opinion. However, what happens when companies sue each other? Are they just lazy? They don't want to work, or they don't owe anything? Let me give you a frivolous lawsuit here. Okay. In 1998, Kellogg, the company's Kellogg, hope you love your Frosted Flakes, everyone, sued Exxon because customers might confuse the gas station's whimsical tiger logo with Kellogg's mascot Tony the Tiger. Yeah, but blacks don't have a case. Okay, how about professionals? In 1996, a Florida physical therapist by the name of Paul Shimkonis sued his local nudie bar, claiming whiplash from a lap dancer's large breasts. He actually won. Well, he actually lost, I'm sorry, but he tried to win a $15,000 lawsuit. So again, America is the lawsuit capital of the world, with individuals, professionals, and even companies suing each other over the most frivolous claims. And yet reparations for black is not even close to frivolous. When you acknowledge that you're guilty of something, when you acknowledge that you're the benefactor of something, how can you then turn around and say those who were negatively affected by it should not receive their portion? You see, if black Americans really wanted to go all the way, we would simply do it violently. There's enough people in this country that are black in color or minority in color that could take over the demands in which we're asking. We could do it violently. And again, this is historically every single time it has been done violently. And yet, whites won't advocate the violence that they themselves are a benefactor of through revolutionary wars and other acts of violence which give them the property they have. And they don't want to give us anything peacefully. What other options do we have? Oh, none. That's it. That's always the answer. None. So, let's continue. The way to finish this serious, and I'm going to try to get to the numbers later. But see, understand something that multiple countries participated in helping Germany and such other ones um, during Adolf Hitler's reign, including the U.S. and Britain. See, that's the washed history. The U.S. and Britain actually were very much in support of Adolf Hitler, seeing that the royal family in England is actually German. They aren't even English. The Windsor family are German and changed their name to Windsor when an outcry from the English people were persuaded the royal family to change their name to something more quote unquote English like. But I digress. So the British Crown is very, very responsible for some of the slavery that is in America. Being the dominant power at that time, they not only allowed it, they benefited from it. Not only that, certain countries benefited from that. We know that Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, and such other ones benefited from this. They should be included as those who give reparations to this. Now, I know so many of you don't even know what reparations mean. I'm trying to make it plain. Okay? It's basically not just repayment like finances. Finances are great. You know, you give someone $100,000 and they go out and buy a new Porsche, new Ferrari, whatever. I don't know. Whatever it costs. And they'll be broke tomorrow. See, because finances is not a builder. Power, positions, education, opportunity, these are real acts of reparations, right? And these are things that these countries can do. Not only the countries, uh, there are many corporations that profited majorly from black reparations. That include insurance companies. Did you know that? Aetna, um, AIG Direct, some other ones, all of them, all of them profited, okay, uh, by slaves. Uh, Railroad, CSX, the CSX trade, the railroad, profit by slave labor. So government and private institutions and corporations were responsible for the debt that many blacks are in even today. Those companies can do major things on behalf of people of color. And as I mentioned before, there are so many opportunities in Spain, in Italy, and well, all these other countries. Namely, there's property in these countries. An opportunity to have some property in these locations, or be inducted as a citizen, or being helped along in some certain things is just as important as this big money bailout. Because people in this country, people who are colored, if you will, are so disenfranchised with staying in this country because this is the only thing we've ever known. Heck, we know uh, the things of this country more than we know of our own families. That's the sad truth. If you ask many of us who are great great grandmother or even great great uh, grandparents or association, we wouldn't know because many of those people were in slavery or they died early or they were put in jail or so many other things. Our history has been wiped out. Our identities have been wiped out. And so we're left scrambling just to try to create something that most whites and others find to be normal. They don't scramble. We have no identification for the most part in America. None. So we don't have a source of standard to reach back and say, I should be like my grandmother. I should be like my great grand, whatever. And that's from slavery and black code policies, which made that possible intentionally. Intentionally. Because remember what I said, even with the 1/8 rule, the one drop blood rule. Think about the hatred that stimulated. But again, I digress. And so this video and the call of the final solution, let's call it the final solution, a play on a word that many leaders, including Adolf Hitler, used as a solution to be the final one. It's for blacks to receive reparations from these corporations, these countries, and such others. This would provide a worldwide healing and true reparations. You see, because the only thing in the United States, the government and people, especially white, but I'm not talking specifically only white, of course, respect is money and power. See, if Michael Jordan couldn't dribble that basketball and excite them and entertain people and sell great shoes, or some think of great shoes, and be worth billions of dollars, he would just be another Negro in a car who, if the cops shot, or if he was anywhere near a scene, is just another thief. Nobody miss him. But Michael Jordan has a name, and he has a power, and he has a face that entertains, that adds value to that person. And so he's valued by the white matrix. Why? Very simple. Because he has something they want. I'll repeat that. The reason why Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson and any other entertainer, Beyonce or someone else, the reason why they're so valued despite their skin color is because those in the white matrix have something that they want. Blacks, on the other hand, that are not exceptions, do not have anything the whites want. And let's be frank, this is not something that's not known. You see, when Italians and Jews and even some Serbian people or people from the Eastern Europe, I should say, even when they came over here to America, they weren't necessarily considered white by so many whites. Yeah, you didn't know that, huh? Yeah, they were actually treated unwhite. Italians were called spigs. Forgive me, I'm not calling you that, Italians. You're my brothers and sisters. But I'm just saying some of the things that you would derogatorily call. You know, the old things about the Irish being drunkards and such other things. They white weren't even considered white enough in this country. You know when they started being white also? When they acquired wealth and position and power. Then, hey, you're white like us. That took some time, even for those whites. And that's why I am not addressing white people when I talk about in this video. I keep talking about the white matrix. It's a mentality. It's a disposition that is demonic. And in some cases, include races who are also demonic, who bring that mindset into the white matrix. So the point is that For blacks to have any rights in this country, for blacks to be respected in this country, blacks are going to need to acquire wealth. Because time would not permit for me to go and talk about the poor whites in this country that have been treated just as bad and in a lot of cases worse than black slaves. That's just how America works. That's how the white matrix works. And so reparations from all of these countries, these corporations and such others, which could amount to 6 trillion or more in total value, I'm talking about. Insurance companies can give policies, free policies over a certain amount of years. As I mentioned this before, 3 to 10 years or something. Of free policies for 50,000 to $250,000 or something. Or allow options like that. If the person is well-to-do at this point, or at least what we call middle class in America, maybe they already have a life insurance, thankfully, and maybe they have $100,000 life insurance. But maybe Aetna can say, hey, you know what? Our way of contributing to your reparations is you pay for the $100,000 one, and we'll give you the $250,000 one at the same price. I mean, after all, companies do that all the time for certain people. They do it for military veterans, AAA members, such other things in terms of discount for these kind of services. These are things that can be required from these insurance companies that benefit, or those who make products, right? How about black enterprises? They could lower the price in terms of the shipping. They may even can give a lot of it for free initially. After all, they wouldn't have to pay any money. They just send the products, and those who have a store or some other thing can actually sell it there, and it brings added value to that company because their brand is getting out there more. They're selling more products, if you will. And therefore, they're more familiarized in a certain demographic. So it works out better for them anyway. They don't lose, they gain. But so do the people of color, finally, for once. And other such corporations, like I said, that would not be, um, it would be not enough time to, in a million-minute video to discuss all of them. But this is my final solution plan. And this is the final solution plan that I really know will work if we all get behind it. You see, because eventually, and this just seems to be happening as a beginning spark right now, if you look back in history, you see that the Revolutionary War started the same way, where there were skirmishes, there were riots, protests. And the British had gotten, after being so many years of ruthless, demonic force against some of the colonists, the British had been ordered, hey, these people are a little bit hot, more than usual. Try not to put too much tyranny on them. Try not to let the spark become an explosion. So even then, the founding fathers and those associated with them found a way to go into a confrontation with the British. And they even brought a mob. Does it sound familiar? And one person made an accusation against a couple of British soldiers about their violence. And when the mob had heard they had had enough from a history of this, they had enough. And the mob said, enough is enough. And one person opened fire. And those British shot back. And that was the real beginning of the Revolutionary War. Because after that event, Britain got a little more serious. And they started sending ships that, as Patrick Henry talked about, the ships are surrounding us even to this moment. Then the so-called Revolutionary War started, not long after that event. The reason why I'm going to all of that is the people will only have or will only take but so much. Now, this is not a threat of violence. I already know that many of you who are of the white matrix, there's no way of reaching you. I understand that. This is not even for those people. This is for those who have and will and who are out of the white matrix. I sincerely wish every racist, every white matrix person to understand the love I have for you enough to tell you the truth. Because, you see, I'm not angry as much as I am frustrated. And I'm frustrated because I'm not a bad person. You see, because if I was angry, it'd be from a disposition of a person who is in the seeking of revenge or justice and trying to obtain that through my own means and powers. So that's not what I'm trying to tell you. There's not a threat in this of me running out there brandishing arms to shoot people, although I have to admit that can also be something that has to happen in the future. I don't know. I could not see or foresee that having to happen. And it doesn't. It most certainly does not have to happen. But I will say this. History has told us, even way back in the time of Exodus, that whether you believe in God or not, and I do, I'm a servant of Yeshua HaMashiach. Well, for those who do not understand that, I am a servant of Jesus Christ, who saved me from my misery, who saved me from the white matrix myself when I was in it, and took me out of that, and took the anger out of me, took the revenge out of me, took the child out of me and made me a man. And to him be all the glory, honor, and praise forever for that. And so, but by whatever means a person comes out of that white matrix, the idea is to get people to do something before something else has to lead to a bad situation. You know, I've discussed this before, but I was born into a situation with parents with a very large family, and unfortunately, there was a lot of abuse. A lot of abuse. It was normal. Being beaten with belts, extension cords. One time I even had a tree swung at me. Even was shot at by my own parent, my own dad. And my mom will be beaten also at times. Usually my dad was drunk. Almost all the times he was drunk, but no excuse. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is this. I didn't kill my dad. My dad died at a pretty decent age of, I believe he was 76 when he died. I didn't kill him. In fact, I tried my best to make peace with him the entire time after God saved me. And what I'm trying to get to here is, well, if you've been abused to that degree, there's going to be anger and hostility. And some people did not handle that. Some people did not have the benefit of having God into their life and change them. And after being abused, would anyone have blamed me if I had just come back at 18, 19, whatever it may be, and done to my dad the things that he had done to me, even taking his life? I think most of you would say it would be understandable, the things you had to suffer. And yet when I extend that out to 400 years of far worse, mine is minuscule in what I suffer compared to so many tens of millions of black people. And you say, if they rise up and they kill white people, listen to me now, they're thugs, riders, such others. Isn't that interesting how the mind thinks? You would justify me for seeking and acquiring revenge. You might even say, hey, look, you probably should have got the cops in there, which we tried to, by the way. But yeah, we can understand why you did what you did. And not only that, of course, my dad was also in many ways a victim of this white matrix. He grew up on a time far worse than mine. His granddad was a slave. His dad was a sharecropper at one point. And they had the benefit of having come from Ohio. For those of you who do not know, the Quakers taught many blacks in Ohio and in Indiana how to read and write, which is why my granddad was such an intelligent man for the most part, able to read and write, unlike most blacks, and to acquire land and wealth. That's why he was able to do that on my dad's side. But this is what we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, why it's a peaceful means of doing so. Right now we're going through, the coronavirus. I'm not going to go political, but this is deception at its worst. And the other things that we're going through, the financial crash, planned financial crash in America, and other things that we're going through as individuals today. And I understand. I do understand. And many of you want to blow your top right now concerning just those issues. Were you ever put in slavery? Were you ever beaten daily for no other reason just to be beaten? Or your family sold? Were your daughter, son sold? You never seen them again? Were they raped, molested in front of you? Was your wife picked up every weekend by the master's son and sexually molested and brought back? These are real cases in America. These are real stories and real lives in America. And if you want justice for yourself, if you can justify your anger, justify your rage, justify what you would do, justify what I would have done were I inclined to against my dad, why can't you justify justice and reparations for people of color in this country? That's a question I want you to ask yourself, because ultimately this comes down to you. How do you want this to go down? Do you want history to record a people who stood with those who were enslaved, who had been the benefactor of all that they themselves were benefited from, and saying, you know what, we owe these people. Without them, we wouldn't have this. Let's give them something back, even if it's a token of our appreciation. Or do you want history to record this as there was a skirmish between the people in the United States of those people who could not take it anymore, and the gunpowder was lit and it exploded, and through internal, domestic, and international help, those people came out of that country and they spoiled the people that was in that country. Do you want to be on that side of it or the other side? I think 100% I want to be on the side of those who talked like this, me and you, had a conversation, who said, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the paperwork. Let's look at those involved. And let's decide if this is really a frivolous lawsuit, like burnt coffee between my legs, or whether it's a corporation lawsuit like Tony the Tiger. Is that really confused with the Exxon Tiger? Or do we say, according to the facts, the absolute facts of this case, this claim is long overdue to being heard and met out. Let's just get it done. Once and for all, let's just get it done. Because if that is what we get to, we'll finally have our justice. We'll finally have our reparations. And you and I and all of us will have our shalom, our peace. Because you may not respect a homeless person when he's out there scrabbling for food. You know, when he puts a sign up, says, we'll work for food, but I need some food. You may not see him. You may see him and say, or her, of course, and say, well, why don't you get a job? There's jobs everywhere. Get a job. Even as 54 million Americans who've gone to college and otherwise are out of a job right now and can't get a job. Still look at that homeless person. Get a job is a reason why you're in the situation you're in. But I guarantee you, if that homeless person somehow came across a winning ticket and they won that winning ticket jackpot for $100,000, and they go out and they get a shave and a nice suit or dress or whatever, and they drive up with a nice slick Corvette or some other sports car. Can you hear them now? Can you see them now? See, suddenly, they're not lazy. Suddenly, you're not telling them to get a job. Suddenly, their value is esteemed and not shunned. The question again is, are you that type of person? Have you really examined your heart to see if you value things more than lives, or if lives equate to and value equate to what someone has, their possessions? Because if that's the case, maybe we should not worry about getting money at all as reparation. Maybe we should just simply worry about enslaving people. After all, nothing brings you respect and power than putting someone in slavery. So what do you think? Do you think people of color should put all white people in America into slavery? Of course not. And neither do I think one person of color that I have ever heard of thinks so either. And yet, Americans have become slaves unto themselves and have put a value on human life to be less than a dog. Or as a Maryland senator once said, we've made the blacks lower than the beast of the field. I say to him, and I say to all of those, a warning, a caution, that if you don't take this peaceful reparations that I'm mentioning now, it may very well end up that the beast of the field, while you're out in the field marveling on your crops that you did not grow, is going to be so violently ready to attack and so strong by having lived in such harsh conditions for so long that it may attack without warning and with a violence that makes you regret training it to be a beast of the field instead of the human being that they are. I want to thank everyone for having given me a chance to bring this solution to you. I'm going to start posting links, and I'm going to get more into different subject matter, including a poem that I'm going to put together soon. I ask that you all continue to watch me, like, subscribe, follow if you can. And just remember, at the end of the day, people are just people. You and I are the same. You know what makes us the same? We have the same beginning, same Father. No one is born without having been descendants of Adam and Eve. No one is born without having been a descendant of Noah and his sons. You're literally the same blood. So the same one drop of blood that is in me, that same one drop of blood is in you. So next time you see my skin, or the skin of others, or white, black, or otherwise, consider that you hate the blood of your Father. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you for enjoying, or at least viewing, this series. this series. I ask you all again to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you have to say when you have a chance. And to you and to yours, this is a greeting that I give to all. The grace of Yeshua HaMashiach be unto you and yours forever. Shalom.